Episode 07 of 1001 Stories of Finance. The Cost of a Bottle. Bolaji and Martins were playing a video game when the doorbell rang. Martins quickly got up to answer it, eager to return to the game. When he opened the door, his friend Ethan stood there. "Oh, Ethan," Martins said, welcoming him in. "Come in." He turned to Bolaji. "This is Ethan, my friend, and Bolaji, my friend as well." They exchanged pleasantries, and Martins added, "We are just playing a game. Grab a controller and join us," settling back into his seat. Ethan shrugged, but kept his eyes wandering around the room instead of the screen. He sat in silence, watching them play, until finally, after a few minutes, he leaned forward and spoke, his voice cutting through the game's audio. "Martins, let's hit the club. We could be having real fun instead of sitting here." Martins glanced at Bolaji, who nodded politely in agreement. Soon, the three of them were in Ethan's car, heading for the club. From time to time, Bolaji gazed out of the car window, lost in thought, as he rode with his friends to the club. He laughed when they laughed, nodded when they spoke, blending into the rhythm of the moment. Yet, his mind was far away. His company leave had just ended, and the bonus that came with it had been squandered long ago, spent on parties and so-called friends. Not a dime remained. Yet here he sat, among men who had no idea he was completely broke. The thought of resuming work was his only relief. He needed that next paycheck, but until then he had nothing. Not for food, not even for bus fare. For 3 days, he had been leaning on Martins, pretending he was only visiting, quietly dodging any moment that required him to contribute. When they arrived at the club, Ethan led them straight into a VIP session, where expensive vintages lined the shelves like trophies. "Let's have fun," Ethan said, glancing between them. Bolaji forced a small smile and followed. He sat, sipping wine and picking at free snacks, trying to ignore the unease rising in his chest. Then the attendant approached. "Excuse me, who is paying for the bottles?" Silence. Ethan continued sipping unfazed. Martins turned slowly to Bolaji, his gaze firm and expectant. It was a silent instruction. Bolaji shifted, lowering his eyes to his phone, pretending not to notice, but Martins didn't look away. "We'll pay when we are done," Martins said sharply. "I'm sorry, sir," the attendant replied. "We require immediate payment." Martins exhaled, irritation creeping into his voice. "Now, you are being annoying. Let us enjoy the club." The attendant left, but the tension lingered. Martins turned back to Bolaji. "Can't you cover this? I don't have money on me." "I don't have anything either," Bolaji said quietly. "You've been at my place for 3 days. Every time I ask you to cover even something small, you always say your card is blocked. I don't understand." Bolaji said nothing. Martins shifted his attention. "Ethan, you made us order this. You should cover it." Ethan didn't even blink. When the attendant returned, she was no longer alone. The club manager stood beside her. "Gentlemen," he said calmly, "we require immediate payment." The pressure tightened. Ethan reached into his pocket and brought out his card. "Here," he said, "payment for the wine I drank." Martins leaned closer. "Ethan, cover ours too. I'll pay you back." Ethan shook his head. I don't have enough. This was more expensive than I expected. And just like that, he returned to the music, detached from the tension. Martins, now visibly embarrassed, pulled out his card. I'll pay for mine, he said, nodding toward Bolaji. He'll pay for his. Bolaji felt his throat tighten. I don't have my card, he said, his voice barely steady. Please, Martins, I'll reimburse you. I just used my license, Martins replied. Bolaji knew it was true. Martins wasn't any better with money, just luckier tonight. With no options left, Bolaji stood up. I'll be back, he muttered, heading toward the restroom, aware of their eyes following him. Inside, he leaned against the sink and called his colleague, Mark. Please, he said, his voice low and urgent. I need a loan, just until I resume work. Mark didn't hesitate. You are joking. You already owe me and others too, Bolaji. Not a cent more until you clear your debts. The line went dead. Bolaji stared at his reflection. Then, uninvited, a memory surfaced. Mr. Albert. You spend on everything that catches your eye, his boss had once said. In the end, nothing remains. Bolaji had laughed then. It's my money. I'll spend it how I like. Mr. Albert had simply nodded. Okay. Now, standing in that cramped restroom, Bolaji finally understood. I don't know what to do, he whispered. How do I pay for this? Calling his parents wasn't an option. They had nothing to spare. And worse, they believed he was doing fine. After a long pause, he straightened. He would beg Ethan if he had to. When he returned, the table was clearing. Where have you been? Martins asked. We are leaving. I was trying to get the money, bet. Forget it. Martins cut in. The owner just came in and declared a bonus day. Your wine is covered. Bolaji froze. The ride home was loud with laughter, but he sat in silence. The relief he expected never came. Instead, there was shame. His friends had paid and walked away freely. He had been saved by luck, nothing more. Always use your money wisely, Mr. Albert's voice echoed in his head. Save for rainy days. Bolaji exhaled slowly. Never again, he said under his breath. That night, while the others slept, Bolaji's phone glowed in the dark. Articles, guides, stories, anything about managing money, controlling spending, and escaping debt. He read until his eyes burned, and he didn't stop, not even after resuming work. The change wasn't immediate, and it wasn't easy. For days, Bolaji begged for rides just to get to the office. When his salary finally arrived, he resisted every old impulse. This time, he had a plan. Bolaji cleared his debts, Mark and everyone else. He tracked every expense and said no to excessive spending, to peer pressure, to the habits that once controlled him. Slowly, discipline replaced chaos, and eventually, it showed. Mr. Albert noticed. You've changed, he said one afternoon. Bolaji smiled. He had. For the first time, his money had purpose, and for the first time, he had control. The cost of that bottle of wine had been far greater than its price, but the lesson he taught Bolaji was priceless. Discipline, planning, and accountability had turned his lowest moment into a turning point. Because in the end, managing money isn't just about survival. It's about freedom, confidence, and control. Keep enjoying the episodes of 1001 Stories of Finance at 1001storiesoffinance.wordpress.com.